All right. Welcome to today's webinar. Today is June 17th, 2013. This week's topic is utility incentive programs for HVAC. We are going to be focusing on the Midwest area, primarily Chicagoland, because that's where most of the changes are effective June. But we also will discuss Wisconsin, Indiana, and Michigan programs as well. There are a few tweaks there for the year. So with that, let's jump right into it here. All right, some of you guys might have seen a couple of these first slides, in previous classes that we've done with you. This is just to let you know that as the, United States, we are basically energy pigs. The buildings that all of us build and work in are very large energy consumers, and depending on whose study data you look at, it's pretty much anywhere between 30 and 40% of all energy consumption is used by buildings. By all, I mean everything: transportation, manufacturing, cars, airplanes, and buildings, both residential and commercial. In today's webinar, we are going to talk about residential and commercial utility rebates. We're going to focus on residential first for about the first half an hour, and then we're going to switch over to the commercial programs. So if for any reason you just strictly do commercial, go ahead and zone out for about 25 minutes and then come back to us here. In buildings themselves, you can see on the right-hand side of the pie chart over there, 20-some% of our energy is used for space heating, 10 to 15% for cooling, ventilation, water heating, refrigeration. If you add up the HVAC and our stuff, it's about 50% of the total energy used in all building types. So we can make a pretty significant impact on the HVAC side. This is what residential looks like specifically. About 45% of the energy used in a residential home is used for space heating, and this is nationwide data. So depending on where you're at in the Midwest, for example, it does get skewed a little bit. Space cooling is about 9%. And for those of you guys in the Midwest, this is pretty close to what you're doing. But if you're tuning in from another state like Florida or Alaska or whatever, your percentages are extremely different than this. This is national average. Residentially, we do have energy codes in play, and we've had energy codes for decades. Here in the state of Illinois, which is where most of the utility changes are at for this month, we've had an energy code residentially since the year 2009, and as of January 1st, we switched over to the International Energy Conservation Code 2012. So that represents the legal minimum that you can install. Big changes from the 09 to 2012 version, if you didn't already know, are blower door testing requirements, duct sealing requirements, duct testing requirements. Those are some of the big ones on the res side there. More of a performance-based type approach. On the appliance side of the equation, the biggest change coming up in the nearest future is about a year and a half away. Water heaters, efficiency requirements increase. The minimum for a residential water heater will be a 0.67 energy factor, 0.675 to be specific. That is basically an Energy Star water heater today. So basically an Energy Star water heater will become the legal minimum gas water heater that you could buy. On the electric side of the equation, if you got stuff that's above 55 gallons, the big change there is that the energy factor needs to be 2.057, and anything above an energy factor of 1 is going to be a heat pump water heater by definition. So if you're not familiar with heat pump water heaters, you should do so over the next year, because that's going to be coming at you pretty quickly. There's a bunch of other stuff that's set to change via the Department of Energy manufacturing rules. The furnace stuff, as most of you guys know, is kind of on an indefinite hold, so we'll update you on that as things change. Boilers are slated to get another efficiency boost, furnace fans, PTACs, room units. There's all kinds of stuff kind of on the schedule there. The best website to go to is appliance-standards.org, and they track each appliance individually and what its current legal statuses and timetables are. So, in terms of free money that's available, the first bucket of free money to get people to upgrade to higher efficiency stuff is available through the federal government. This is for 2012 and 2013, so you basically got 6 months left on this particular program. For HVAC, it is 10% of the cost of the system up to $500 maximum, and for the most part, you always hit the $500 maximum with HVAC with the 10% thing. And if you want to look at it and break it down further, it's $300 towards air conditioners or water heaters, $150 towards furnaces and boilers, and $50 towards efficient furnace or fan coil fans. Boilers and furnaces need to be 95%. Air conditioners need to be 16 SEER. So those are two key targets there. And here's the full breakdown on that if you want to see. It's got to be 16 SEER and 13 EER. I should specify that for an AC split system. There are also rebates available on heat pump splits, which is 15 SEER, 12.5 EER, and 8.5 HSPF. It's got to meet all three of those in that case. You could also use this money towards stuff other than HVAC, like new storm doors or something like that. You can use it towards air sealing and insulation for those of you guys that are in the home performance world. However, in that particular situation, you can only use it for the materials. You cannot use it for the labor like you can on other systems. So it's 10% of the cost of the materials. So it's pretty hard to get up to $500 in caulk. But if you're also doing air sealing and insulation, you might be able to get there, but it's still a lot of insulation. And the last thing I'll mention on that is it's $500 lifetime tax credit. So if you took the tax credit 2 or 3 years ago or 5 years ago or whatever it started, you are no longer eligible to do it again in future years. So if you did it on your old house, got the tax credit, and now you move to a new house, you cannot do it on the new house. And you can only do it on your primary house. You cannot do it on your vacation home for this particular credit. There are also residential tax credits available for more renewable type technologies. And in that regard, we're talking about geothermal heat pump systems and solar thermal water heating systems on the HVAC side. In that case, it's 30% of the cost, and there is no cap. So if you spend $100,000 on a geo system, you can get a $30,000 rebate. That also is available for vacation homes in addition to primary residences, and it does not expire until 2016. So that one lasts a little bit longer. So that one's out there on the table as well. All right, so the main crux of what we're going to talk about today is the utility programs, and specifically some of the changes to them that just occurred in June here. So if you didn't know, in most states, and especially here in Illinois, Wisconsin, Indiana, Michigan, where most of you guys are from, in most states, your utility is required by law to administer a efficiency program, and that program is funded by you, the ratepayer. So if you go and look at your residential or your commercial utility bills, you will find a line item on there very similar to the one that I've highlighted here on my Nitecore gas bill, expressing how much you've paid into the program for the month. So for that particular month on that bill from March of last year, I paid $1.81 into the system. So every month you're paying into the gas and electric utility, and then that goes into a fund, and that fund is used to pay out energy efficiency rebates. So that's kind of how that works. There are minimum efficiency savings that each utility must attain, and there are dollar amounts associated with that savings. It's in the multi-million dollars. ComEd, for example, locally, it's like $55 million. Some of the gas utilities are in the $20 to $30 million range here locally. So it's a pretty big chunk of money they got to pay out. Here's a typical type of rebates that the utility programs tend to utilize. The main ones are what we call prescriptive rebates, or sometimes they are called standard rebates. These are available both residentially and commercially, although it tends to be separate programs. And sometimes there's a separate program for industrial, sometimes it's mixed with commercial. And it'll basically be a list of things you can do and what the dollar amount rebate will be. So it'll say, if you put in this efficiency furnace, you get this many dollars. If you put in this boiler, you get this many dollars. If you put in this VFD, you get this many dollars. So that's why it's prescriptive. It's just a list of things you can do. There's a little blurb on each one that has the specs of what the equipment must be, and you can get rebates for that. Generally, it's for equipment replacements, adding control systems to existing equipment, or for tuning up existing equipment. Those are kind of the main categories you'll see on that. You will also see direct install programs. This is where the utility has hired specific subcontractors to do work for them, and it's called direct install because technically the utility is installing it directly for the homeowner or the building owner, as opposed to them going out and finding their own contractor. So the utility kind of acts like a general contractor for these very minor types of things. Usually what this ends up equating to is in multifamily programs, multi-story residential buildings. They'll put in low-flow shower heads for you, aerators, CFL light bulbs, and sometimes programmable thermostats. Some of the utilities do have that same kind of program available for single-family, and some of them are now starting to do it for small businesses, where they'll directly install some of these measures. And then usually they're also doing some kind of energy audit in conjunction with that to try to figure out if this building owner can also benefit from other stuff like a boiler replacement or something like that. If you want to be involved in that arena, you do have to sign up as a subcontractor to the utility or to the utility's affiliates in order to do that. Not just anybody can do it. Whereas the prescriptive standard stuff, any contractor can do that. Some of the utility rebates are in the form of low-cost energy audits. This is both true residentially and commercially. Sometimes they're free, but usually they're low cost. Residentially, it might be $50 or $100, depending on the utility. And they'll come in and do a 2-hour type assessment on your house to figure out what the low-hanging fruit is and give you a report suggesting what you might do and how much energy it might save. So that's part of the programs typically as well. And then also you'll see on these programs in some utility cases on-bill financing. So if you go ahead and put in the new high-efficiency furnace, they may let you finance that through your utility bill at a low interest rate. And we'll talk a little bit about that later on. So here in the Illinois area, some states are easy, like Wisconsin. It's one program for the whole state. That makes it very, very easy and very clean. In other states, it may not be that way. Indiana, it's one program for the whole state for electric, but the gas utilities do their own thing. Here in Illinois, everybody does their own thing. There's 5 major utilities in Illinois that participate in rebate programs. Nitecore, Gas, Peoples Gas, North Shore Gas, and Ameren. And then on the electric side, it's ComEd and Ameren. So these maps here I'm showing you in green, that's the Nitecore service territory, which is the bulk of where most of you guys on the webinar are from. That little white spot, if you can see there by the city of Chicago on the map, that's Peoples Gas territory. So the city limits is basically the boundaries of Peoples Gas. And that other white spot on the top up here on the Nitecore map, that is North Shore Gas. Peoples Gas and North Shore Gas have the same parent company, Integris, and their utility rebate programs are run together. So in almost every case, it's the exact same rebates and applications and dollar amounts for North Shore and Peoples. Hopefully that helps explain it a little bit there. All right, so we're going to kind of go through the utilities one by one. We'll go through the Illinois utilities on the res side, then we'll do Indiana, Michigan, Wisconsin, and then we'll do the exact same thing over on the commercial side, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Wisconsin. So on the Nitecore side, which is the biggest gas utility, these are the things that have changed. So I'll mention kind of the changes, then we'll kind of go through what everything is. So those of you guys that know the program, here's what's different. You no longer have to submit detailed line item invoices with the application forms. It used to be you had to have a line item for the thermostat, one for the furnace, one for the humidifier, etc. You no longer have to do that. It could be one bulk dollar amount on the invoice. You still got to list out the products that you provided, but it could be one bulk dollar amount. The application form is a little bit shorter than it used to be, and some of the duplicate language was cleaned up, so it should be a little bit easier for you guys to process that stuff. In regards to boilers, indirect domestic water tanks for boilers, programmable thermostats, or hot water pipe installation, there's no changes. Those programs are identical, and I'll highlight what those are in a minute. The water heater program, it still stays a 0.67 energy factor, which is basically an Energy Star water heater, but the dollar amount reduces from $300 down to $100. It was artificially inflated last year with some marketing dollars to kind of generate awareness. Now it's gone back down to its natural dollar amount. Furnaces, there's a few changes here. 92% AFUE stays $200, 95% increase up to $300, and 97% decrease to $400. So it's 92, 95, 97, $200, $300, $400. The combined system rebates, which is where you have Nitecore furnaces combined with ComEd rebates for AC, those dollar amounts, generally speaking, have increased, and I'll show you those in a minute. And some of the Nitecore bundles have increased. Bundles are where they group furnaces, AC, water heaters, and some smaller things like programmable stats and domestic water pipe installation into one combined rebate for a larger dollar amount for the consumer. So there's the furnaces I mentioned, 92, 95, 97, $200, $300, and $400 are the furnace rebates. Boilers remain unchanged. The two tiers are 90% AFUE and 95% AFUE, and the dollar amounts are $350 and $450. So even though the rebates didn't change, there is a change in that regard. Back last November, December, AHRI changed the formula for how they rate modulating condensing boilers, which is what most of these guys you're going to get a rebate are for. They changed that formula, and most manufactured boilers, if not all, have dropped 1 to 4% AFUE points. So a boiler that used to be 96% may only be 94% today. Ones that used to be 95 may only be 93 or 94. So you got to kind of pay attention to that. Don't look at the old specs. Look at the AHRI current website to make sure you got the right boiler there. You do have to put outside air reset controls on those boilers to get that efficiency level, so pay attention to that as well. All the Nitecore rebates, by the way, expire May 31st of next year. and then in June a new program would start. Pretty much every June new programs start for most of the Illinois utilities anyway. For Indiana, Wisconsin, Michigan, and other states, it's usually at January 1st. The water heaters, like I said, the regular tank water heaters are down from $300 down to $100. If you add an indirect tank to a high-efficiency boiler install, it's $100 for that tank. Programmable thermostats stay at $20 as long as they're installed on gas appliances. And if you add 6 feet of hot water pipe insulation onto the hot water pipes, it's a $10 rebate. You got to do that in conjunction with something else. You can't just do 6 feet of pipe insulation and apply for a $10 rebate. It's too much paperwork. So you got to do it in conjunction with a water heater or a furnace or something. There are no rebates on the Nitecore side for instantaneous, water heaters. That currently is not available from this particular utility. All right, so the complete system rebates. Basically, you can take those 92, 95, and 97% furnaces and combine them with either a 14.5 or a 16 SEER air conditioner for an increased dollar amount rebate. You do get 2 checks. You get one from Nitecore and one from ComEd. So the dollar amounts I'm showing you here are the addition of those 2 rebates, but the homeowner will get 2 checks in the mail, one from each utility. The SEER ratings have to be the SEER rating that is represented on the AHR website for the combined rating. Combined rating means the air conditioner with a specific model number of evaporator with a specific model number of furnace. Those 3 combined together get a SEER rating, and if you change to a different evaporator or to a different furnace, you will get a different SEER rating for that air conditioner. So it's not the SEER rating in the marketing literature, it's the SEER rating that is listed on the AHR website for that specific combination of 3 widgets. So just keep that in mind. You can get from $700 up to $1,000 depending on which combination of things you've chosen. For example, if you went top tier and got a 97% furnace with a 16 SEER air conditioner, it's a $1,000 rebate. If you went tax credit tier, because the federal tax credit is 95% AFUE and 16 SEER, you would get the federal tax money of $500, plus you get the $900 from Nitecore and ComEd. I should also point out that heat pumps are not eligible. The current rules for the utilities in Illinois anyway, in northern Illinois, do not allow heat pumps. If you have a heat pump system, which is a great system, you can save some energy there, but it does not allow you to get a gas furnace rebate and does not allow you to get an AC rebate, because obviously the heat pump is going to be taking away from those other products, if you will. So they're not allowed. And then, like I said, Nitecore has value packages. So value packages are when you take that furnace and combine it with an air conditioner, and then on top of that, add the water heater, the Energy Star water heater. And then in addition to that, they make you do 6 feet of pipe insulation, which is really easy, and a programmable stat, which you should have been doing anyway. You add all 5 of those together, and you can get a rebate from $1,000 up to $1,300. So if you did a 97% furnace with a 16 SEER air conditioner, with a 0.67 energy factor water heater, 6 feet of pipe insulation, and a programmable stat, $1,300. So that's a pretty decent rebate. If you guys are on the residential retail side, that's probably the rebate you should be advertising. And any folks you can get to do all 5 of those things, great. And if they end up choosing a lower tier thing, that's fine. But I would advertise the $1,300 as my my main postcard or website type advertisement. All right, so that's the Nitecore residential rebates on the prescriptive standard side. If you guys have questions, by the way, feel free to type them in the question chat box, and I'll try to answer them as they come up. There is another program that is run on the Nitecore side. It's in conjunction with Nitecore and ComEd. It's called the Home Energy Savings Program. Basically, the consumer can get a low-cost energy audit for $99. And then as part of that audit, they will install, depending on the utility, some free compact light bulbs, aerators, shower heads, low-flow shower heads, and stuff like that. And then they will also give you a report explaining things that you can do to save energy. And in that program, some of those things in the report may include envelope sealing, attic sealing, attic insulation, and ductwork sealing. And if you do some of those measures, you can get an additional rebate for up to $1,750. But you do have to do the energy assessment first, and the work needs to be done by one of the utility subcontractors that is involved in this specific program. So if you're a contractor that wants to do that sealing and insulation type work and you're not part of the program, you would need to contact CSG. who's on the bottom of this page right here, and see if they are currently accepting new applications for contractors into the program. All right, so let's switch utilities. Let's talk about Peoples Gas, and at the same time we're going to talk about North Shore Gas, because these utilities are owned by the same parent company and the programs are the same. So we're going to talk about them together. So here's the stuff that's changing, the major stuff that's changing, and then we'll talk about the individual things. So they've added duct sealing to the program. They've added a tier for 97% furnaces, which used to not exist. They've added steam boilers on the program. They've added a combination boiler domestic hot water unit, which is new. They've added furnace and boiler tune-ups on the program residentially, which is new. And then also, on the top of all those things, which we'll talk about in a minute, there's also a rebate coupon for $250 on top of any rebate that you get if the consumer first does the Jumpstart Direct Install program. So Direct Install program is one of those programs like I just mentioned where they come in and they install aerators on your kitchen faucet, low-flow shower heads, programmable stats, that kind of stuff. If you do that program, the consumer is handed a $250 bonus rebate coupon that they could use towards a new furnace, boiler, etc. So that's kind of the stuff that's new right now. Looking at these things kind of on a one-by-one basis. So the first thing is that new combination boiler water heater. That's an $800 rebate. This is a single appliance, one machine with one model number that is your boiler and your domestic water heater. We do offer some of those at TEC. If you want information on them, I can get that to you, but that is an $800 rebate. If you do boilers, which are two tiers available, 90% and 95% AFUE, the rebates are $600 and $700 respectively for those. If you add boiler reset controls to an existing boiler, basically outside air reset controls, that is $200 rebate. Joe sends in a note, can you reference Aeroseal? That's who I am as a method of duct sealing from the inside out. Joe, I am familiar with Aeroseal technology. It's an aerosol-based mist that gets sprayed into ductwork to seal the cracks from the inside. Some utility programs allow that, some may not. Like this home energy saving ones from Nitecore that I had up. I do not believe that one, Aeroseal, is a current method that's allowed under that program. I believe you have to seal it with mastic and or tape. I'm not sure on the Peoples Gas side. I'd have to ask them, but I'm not positive if Aeroseal is allowed. I think that it is because it's a performance-based spec where you have to, I'll show you in a second what the duct sealing looks like, but it's a performance-based spec, so I don't really think they care how you seal it. As long as you seal it under a safe, code-allowed method, I don't think they really care how you get it done. We'll talk about that in a second. Jumping back to the regular rebates, furnaces, there are three tiers, 92, 95, and the brand new 97% AFUE tier. That corresponds to $200, $500, and $600 respectively. And then there is also a combo rebate where Peoples and North Shore Gas work in conjunction with ComEd to do a rebate on the furnace and the air conditioner. Works very much the same as the Nitecore program. So if you get a 92% furnace with a 14.5 SEER air conditioner, $600, 95 with a 14.5, $900, 97 with a 14.5, $1,000 rebate. I will point out that at the current time there is no 16 SEER rebate on this program. It's only 14.5. And then I will also point out, just like the Nitecore ComEd combo program, Peoples and North Shore works the same way. You have to do the furnace in order to get the air conditioner. No new furnace, no air conditioner. They want to keep their existing furnace and add an awesome air conditioner that's 22 SEER or whatever. Doesn't matter, can't get a rebate. It's only done in conjunction with the furnace. And you will get two separate checks. And once again, one from the gas utility, one from ComEd. And then once again, heat pumps are not allowed on the program. And in both cases, Peoples North Shore or Nitecore, you're filling out a single application to the gas utility, and ComEd is writing you a check on the back end. So you're not having to write out two applications. I will point out with, well, maybe I'll just leave that alone for now. There is a steam boiler rebate at 82% for $150. I'm not sure how often that's going to come up. Residentially, generally, we try to talk people into upgrading to a hot water system and getting rid of the steam system, but there is a rebate there. Additional rebates on the Peoples North Shore program. The other brand new rebate is furnace and boiler tune-ups. It is a $50 rebate. There is a spec and a checklist that you have to follow to get that. Hopefully people are already doing some form of tune-ups, but generally people do it when things break. So the idea here is that the utility is going to help compensate you to do regular tune-ups, to pay part of that labor cost. That way things operate a little more effectively and efficiency instead of just waiting till they die. Peoples and North Shore do have a tankless water heater rebate. It needs to be a 0.80 energy factor, and that is $150. There's also an indirect water heater, which is something, once again, you tie into your boiler. That's $150. There's storage tank water heaters at 0.67 energy factor. It is a $50 rebate. Programmable stats are $50, which is actually a really high rebate. That's pretty good. It may be the best residential one in the Midwest. I'm not sure. It's pretty close. Then there's also a bunch of pipe insulation rebates for either steam systems, steam condensate, hydronic heating, or domestic hot water. And depending on which of those you do, it's either $1, $2, $3, or $4 rebates per foot. And that's because those temperatures are typically hotter as you kind of go up the chart there. So the hotter the temperature, hotter or more usage, the bigger the rebate. The duct sealing rebate is $3 per CFM of reduction, capped at a $500 maximum. So what happens there is that you have to test in and test out when you do this. So you have to do a duct blaster test the system to see how leaky it is, seal it up, and then test it again at the end. And it's $3 for every CFM of reduction that you get. In order to do that program, you do not have to be any type of subcontractor like you do on the Nitecore side. However, you do have to be listed on the Illinois duct leakage testing website. In order to do that, you have to be DET certified or BPI certified or ResNet or something of that nature. But you got to be listed on that website first in order to be able to offer this particular rebate. And then the last rebate on the residential program here is attic insulation. It's 30 cents per square foot. That rebate is for insulation. There is no rebate for sealing the attic, but obviously most of you guys that are involved in home performance know you need to seal it before you insulate it. So it'd be the wise thing to do. And once again, you do have to be listed on on a particular website for certification. That website is the one run by MIA. It's the Illinois Home Performance website. So you got to be a home performance contractor in order to be able to offer that rebate. But other than that, there's no restrictions. And then the insulation you put in, you basically have to have R19 or less currently and put in R38 or better after you do the work. So that's kind of the general rules on that. By the way, each one of these slides I'm showing you down at the bottom of the page is the website for the utility program. So if you want to read more detailed specs on any of these programs, you certainly can. All right, so that is residential, Nitecore, North Shore, and Peoples Gas. Last thing on Illinois residential, and then we'll touch on some of the out-of-state programs. There is an on-bill financing program set up in the state of Illinois. The website is illinoisenergyloan.com. It is run by AFC First, which is a financing company out of Pennsylvania. And they are actually hosting a webinar next week on the 26th, Wednesday morning, if you're interested on how this program works. Basically, it's available to Peoples Gas, North Shore Gas, and ComEd customers. Nitecore is currently not participating. It is also available downstate to Ameren customers, too, although I didn't have it on the slide here. And you basically can get a 3, 5, or 10-year loan at 5% interest rate with no money down, and they finance it through your utility bill. It is currently only available for 92% furnaces and 14.5 SEER air conditioners on the rebate program. So you can get the rebate, and you can do the on-bill financing. If you want to learn more about that, watch for announcements on the webinar for next week. If you're not eligible for any of those, there are other low-interest loan programs available. The website to check out there is energyimpactillinois.org, and you can find some information about different stuff that's available statewide or in specific counties, and you can get some lower-cost loans that way for energy improvements. So energyimpactillinois.org. All right, let's talk about Indiana a little bit. The Indiana programs run on a calendar year. So in Illinois, it runs June 1st through May 31st. In Indiana, it runs January 1st through December 31st. These are the current rebates that are available. You're going to find that for boilers, for almost every utility in the Midwest, the tiers are always 90% and 95% AFUE. For furnaces, it's always 92 and 95, and sometimes also 97. So it's pretty much the same tiers all the way around the board here. And for water heaters, it's always a 0.67 energy factor. So for boilers, 90 and 95 is $300 and $450 residentially. For furnaces, a 92 is $150, a 95 is $200, and then a 95 with an ECM motor is $250. Because Nipsco runs gas and electric programs, if you happen to be a customer of both of those programs, gas and electric, then you can get this kind of rebate where you got the ECM and the 95% furnace. An idea there obviously is the ECM saves electrical energy. Most 95% furnaces do have ECMs or variable speed ECMs, but you can find ones without, so you got to pay attention to that. Storage water heaters are no longer on the program. They were eliminated this year, and tankless water heaters were also eliminated. So there are no rebates for the Nipsco territory in Indiana on domestic water systems. Programmable stats are $20. And by the way, the Nipsco programs are run by RSG, Resource Solutions Group, which is the same group that runs Nitecore, so there are some similarities there. On the electric side, if you're a Nipsco electric customer, there is a combo rebate. It's down here in the middle of the page, if you can see that. It's for 15 SEER air conditioners with 95% AFUE furnaces that have ECM motors. If you fall into that category, it's an additional $200. So you get the furnace, which, what did I say that was? $250 plus the AC $200, so a total of $450. There are also a heat pump rebate on the program. It's 15 SEER and 8.2 HSPF. That's $200. You can get that rebate. There is a heat pump water heater. It's got to be an energy factor of 2.0 or greater, which I think almost every heat pump water heater is. That's a $300 rebate. Like I said, storage water heaters are eliminated from the program. You could do an ECM retrofit onto an existing furnace or fan coil and get a $200 rebate. Programmable stats are $20. Oh, and then I skipped the ones on top here. Ductless heat pumps. If you get a 17 SEER 9.5 HSPF heat pump, you're eligible for $300 or $500 rebate. The $500 is if you're replacing electric resistance heating. $300 is if you're replacing an older, less efficient heat pump. All right. Also on the Nipsco program, new as of January 1st is home performance type rebates. That includes attic insulation, wall insulation, and duct sealing. Once again, as we said earlier, if you're going to put insulation in the attic, you should seal it first and then insulate it. That's not specifically part of the program, but it's the normal good practice thing to do. You basically have to be coming out of a system that had R8 or less, and you have to be going into a system that's R38 or greater, and you have to be pre-approved in the program. And I believe the requirement there is to be BPI certified and to fill out an application with Nipsco to become a contractor. And I believe it is still open for new contractors. The rebate is 40% of whatever the cost is, up to $450. It's the same thing for wall insulation, 40% up to $450. And then duct sealing, it's 100% up to $400. And I have discussed the Aeroseal solution with these guys, Joe, and Aeroseal is allowed in the Nipsco territory. I don't know if you do work down there, but that is an acceptable solution. In all cases, for all three of these rebates, you do have to join the program as a contractor in order to be able to offer these. And I believe joining the program and taking like a 3-hour training class on how the program works. All right, so that was Indiana stuff. Michigan, we do have a couple people on here from Michigan, so I'll highlight these ones real quick. The website there is efficiencyunited.com. It is pretty much the same program that is run throughout the entire state. It is one website for all gas and electric utilities, and Michigan runs on a calendar year, January 1st, December 31st. And then every January, new programs start. So here's kind of the rebates. Programmable stat residentially, $40. Boilers, there's only one tier, 92%. It's $1,000. It's a pretty good rebate, and 92% covers most condensing boilers nowadays. Furnaces, there's two tiers, 94, 95%. It's $100 or $400 in that regard. There's a tune-up program for furnaces. It's $100. Water heaters, 0.67 again, is $100. There's an instantaneous water heater. It's got to be a 0.82, $150. Electric water, 0.93, $35. Heat pump water heater, $60. 15 SEER AC, $150. 15 SEER heat pump, $250. Geothermal at 17 ER or greater, $250. An ECM motor on a new or existing furnace, $100. So if you did this 95% furnace for $400 and it happened to have a variable speed ECM in it, you get the extra $100, so you get $500 total for that furnace, assuming you were a customer of both the gas and electric utility. Wisconsin residential, this is kind of what that program looks like. Similar to what you saw before, the folks that run the Wisconsin program are Franklin Energy, which are the same folks that run Peoples and North Shore Gas, so you do see some similarities between those programs and their applications. 90% furnace. By the way, all the furnace rebates in Wisconsin have to have an ECM motor. No ECM motor, no rebate. So 95% AFUE with ECM, $125. 95% ECM, $275. And if you want to do a combo with the 95% ECM and a 16 SEER AC, the total for all combined is $400. Heat pumps, 16 SEER or greater, $300. Boilers, 90 and 95 are the tiers, $300 and $400 the dollar amounts. Indirect water heaters added on to a boiler, $100 extra. Tankless water heaters, $100. Storage water heaters, $50. If you put a condensing storage water heater in, which has to be 90% thermal efficiency or greater, that's a $100 rebate. Electric water heaters, $25. Heat pump water heaters, $300. And if you add an ECM motor to an existing piece of equipment, $125. There is also air sealing and attic insulation rebates up to a maximum of $300. And then if you're in a low income category, or if your customer's in a low income category, and there's a whole chart to decide if you qualify for that, then the rebate dollar amounts actually increase above these base dollar amounts. So just keep that in mind too. Then additionally, customers that are in the We Energies territory, which is kind of like, I guess it would be mostly southeastern Wisconsin, they have all those focus rebates that I just mentioned. Plus, for some of them, they add $100 extra on if you happen to be a customer of that electric utility. So it's ECM motors on a gas furnace, extra $100. Boilers, extra $100. And then down here on the bottom for some low-income additional rebates as well. If you're in Milwaukee, there's extra rebates also. So on top of the regular Focus on Energy statewide programs, you can get the ME2 program, which will give you additional incentives on that. I'm not going to go through that right now. It's only a couple of you guys are from Milwaukee. But the website is smartenergypays.com. It is for Milwaukee residents, and you get the Focus on Energy rebates plus additional Milwaukee rebates. And there's multiple tiers there depending on your income level. So there's a lot going on. There's multiple tiers depending on whether it's just boilers and furnaces or whether it's insulation and air sealing, that kind of thing. Got a couple folks down in Missouri. I won't go through all of that, but the website there is betterheatingnow.com. So there are rebates there residentially, mainly for furnaces at 90 or 96% AFUE. Boilers, if they're Energy Star boilers, which is 95% efficient, I believe. Stats, $25. And there's also some water heating rebates for storage tank water heaters, condensing water heaters, and tankless water heaters. Kansas City, some of you guys are in that area too. There's some rebates there, up to $850 for an AC, which is really good. Obviously, AC runs more hours there than it does in Chicago, where I'm from. Programmable stat rebates, and then room air conditioner rebates. If you are in the Kansas side of Kansas City, there are no rebates for you, only Missouri folks. All right, then on top of all the stuff I just listed, there's tons of other rebates that I'm not going to have time to go through today on the res side. There's home performance rebates. There's stuff for new construction buildings, AC cycling for load shed purposes. There's the low energy audits, multifamily programs, single family direct install programs, low income programs. Some of the munis have rebate programs, appliance recycling, lighting. There's all kinds of stuff going on. So check out the websites and see what you can get free for you and your customers, or at least low cost. All right, so let's switch over to the commercial side here. All right, if you have any questions, type them in the question chat box. I realize I'm going through like a million things here, but type them in, I'll try to answer them. So here's kind of the breakdown of energy consumption on the commercial buildings. Overall, this is nationwide average. The types of buildings obviously have a big difference, but a quarter of the energy is going to space heating, 6 to 10% or so goes to cooling, 6% for ventilation, 7% for water heating, 4% for refrigeration. Once again, basically half of the stuff here is HVACR related. Depending on your building type, these numbers change a lot. Like if you're in the city of Chicago, this space heating number wedges down pretty small, and space cooling gets pretty large because you got a lot of big buildings with interior core cooling needs. But so it kind of just depends on the size of buildings you're at. But the point here is 50% of the energy in a building we can touch on with HVACR. We do have energy codes in all the states that we're talking about here. In Illinois, which is where most of you guys are from. The current energy code is the 2012 Illinois Energy Conservation Code, and that is applicable as of January 1st. So there's some new changes there. If you're not familiar with those, get with me later and I can get you up to speed on some of the changes. But big things are economizers are required on pretty much every unit. ERVs are more required than they used to be, CO2 sensors, all that kind of stuff. There is some federal tax money available for commercial buildings. It is not a credit like there is on the res side. It is a deduction, so that works a little bit differently, but nonetheless, it's still free money. It's a little bit harder to get, though. Basically, what it comes down to is you can get up to $1.80 per square foot. That's 60 cents for HVAC, 60 cents for lighting, and 60 cents for building envelope, for a total of $1.80 per square foot. If you can be 50% more efficient than the old 90.1 2001 energy standard. If you get yourself up to the current code, that's about 40% more efficient. So you're only like 10% more away. So just bringing a building up to code almost gets you there. So if that's your project that you're rehabbing a building and getting it to code, you should definitely chase after this particular rebate. If you're just changing out somebody's boiler or chiller or something like that, there's no way you're going to get this rebate because that boiler or chiller is not going to be able to save 50% by itself. You're going to have to do multiple things in that building. So you pretty much got to be a rehab of a building to get the rebate. So you basically got to energy model it, per the old standard, and then energy model it the way you're building it, or rehabbing it, I should say, and see what the difference is. And that rebate is good through the end of the year. Or I should say that tax deduction is good through the end of the year. There's also a federal tax credit available, and this is for geothermal systems. You can get 10% up to the 10% of the cost of installing the geothermal system, and that's for both the equipment, the design, and the wells. So you can do that. That credit is good through 2016. It is also available for solar thermal systems. The only difference really is instead of 10%, it's up to 30% on those systems. Once again, good through 2016. So pay attention to those if you're doing that kind of work, and make sure you're getting those credits for your building owner. All right, so the utility programs. It works the same way as the res ones we just talked about. Everybody's got a line item on their bill. They're all paying into the program based on how much gas or electric they consume, determines how much they pay into the program, and then everybody can apply to get money back out of the program. There's very few entities that are not on the program. You got to be some giant, major industrial facility to exclude yourself from the program. Major would be like a power generation facility could exclude themselves from the gas program, or maybe somebody like Caterpillar or something like that. But almost every building you go into is paying into this program. All right, so the changes on the Nitecore program. The application is a little bit simpler, just like it is on the res side. There are no changes to the boiler program, infrared heaters, water heaters, unit heaters, boiler outside air reset controls, programmable stats, and pipe installation. All that stuff stays the same, and the custom program stays the same. The stuff that's changing, furnace rebates have increased. If you put in a residential size furnace in a commercial building, which is very common in some of these strip malls and stuff like that, you put a 92% in, it's $300. A 95% is $400. Some rebates were eliminated, like boilers for your pool and spa type stuff. That's gone. And there are some technical changes to how the tune-up programs work and the steam trap replacement programs work. The big change, the new thing for all the utilities, all the gas utilities, is adding demand control ventilation. So we'll talk about that on each one of them. For Nitecore, the program is 50 cents per square foot of area that's controlled by the CO2 sensor, up to a maximum of $2,000. And then ComEd still has their CO2 rebate program. So you can put one CO2 sensor in, and as long as it's saving both gas and electric, which it would, you can double dip it on both programs. So when we talk about the ComEd one in a few minutes, keep in mind that you're getting it on the gas and electric side. Here's the overall program. I'm not going to go through every single one of these just for time reasons, but you can see what they are, and there's the rebate there. There are rebates for non-condensing boilers. Overall, it's not overly attractive to do that. I guess if you're stuck and you can't fix the venting for condensing, maybe you would do this. But if you can get new PVC venting in, you're probably better off going with the condensing boiler. So for example there, if I put in a, say, 1,000,000 BTU boiler, it's $5,000. 500,000 BTU boiler, $2,500. Kind of how that guy works. It's just tiered based on the size of the boiler. In all cases, it's got to be 90% efficient, either AFUE for the small guys or thermal efficiency for the commercial size boilers. I already mentioned the furnaces, 92 and 95 for $300 and $400. Condensing unit heaters, $250 per MBH. Infrared heaters, which are becoming much more popular these days. If you put an infrared heater into an existing, warehouse or manufacturing facility or something like that, it's $700 per heater. Doesn't really matter what size it is. Generally, they range from 40,000 to 200,000 BTUs, but for rebate purposes, it's all $1 amounts. It's $700 per burner, basically. Other rebates on the program, boiler outside air reset controls. It's 50 cents per MBH of boiler size that you're putting it on, up to a maximum of $1,500 per controller. You can do tune-ups under this program. It's 40 cents per MBH, up to maximum of $1,500. And the tune-ups require you to basically, clean the boiler, do a safety checklist, and do a combustion analysis on the boiler before and after you do the work. And the big change on that program is that the combustion analysis test has to show an increase in efficiency after you leave the site. If it doesn't increase the efficiency, there is no rebate. That's the big change there. Whereas they used to pay a rebate on everything, now you actually have to improve it to get a rebate. There's rebates for pipe installation, either $4 or $8, depending on whether it's indoor or outdoor pipe. Demand control ventilation, like I mentioned, 50 cents a square foot. Programmable stats, $50 if you put them on stuff that's 300,000 BTUs and less, which is most rooftop units. Steam traps are a huge part of the program for all the gas utilities. It's really low-hanging fruit, easy to do, and saves a lot of therms. So you see that all over the place. The Nitecore program is tiered based on the pressures of the system, but your typical commercial building, it's going to be $100 per trap. Right now it's a double rebate, so it's $100 per trap, which is a really good rebate. Industrial stuff with higher pressures could be $400 or $500 per trap. There's also a program where they will pay you a rebate to do a survey of the steam traps, and then if you fix a certain percentage of them, at that point in time, you get the rebates for the traps, and you also get the rebates for doing the survey on all the traps. So you go in and you do a survey on 100 of them and document it, but you only have to fix, 30 of them or something. You get the trap survey rebate times 100, and you get the actual repair rebate times 30. Kind of how that works. There are rebates for water heating, but it's really only on regular, tank water heaters. If you're a big building, you're doing your domestic water with a boiler system, and there is no single rebate for that. You have to do it as a custom rebate, and I'll explain what custom is in a minute. So if you're doing boilers for like multifamily buildings and stuff like that for domestic water, you got to do it as a custom. So here's how the custom works. Basically what you do is you propose a solution to the customer and calculate how much energy it'll save for them over the course of a year. Those calculations get submitted to the gas utility program, and then they do their own calculations to kind of verify that you're on track, and they may adjust your amount up or down. And then the rebate's actually paid on how much energy you really save over the course of the year. And they normalize it for weather and stuff like that if it's a heating-related thing. If it's less than 75,000 therms a year saved, they pay you 75 cents per therm. If it's more than that, they pay you $1 a therm. And there's a $500,000 maximum on that. Good luck reaching the maximum. But that's not just for domestic water. That could be anything. It could be for an ERV or whatever. Heat reclaim off of a chiller, right, if you're going to use that to offset your domestic water load, anything like that. So anything that's not a normal listed thing on the standard program, you could do it as a custom rebate. All right, Peoples and North Shore Gas. Once again, I'm going to talk about those as a single thing because they are run as one program anyway. So here's the changes for June 1st. The programmable stat rebate goes up to $50. That's a good rebate. Like I said, that's pretty much on par with the rest of the Midwest. Water heater rebates increase for Peoples and North Shore Gas. Instead of a single dollar amount, it's based on the size of the boiler. It's $2 per MBH times the size of the boiler, but it is limited to 399,000 BTUs and less. If you're above that, you got to do it as a custom. There's a new tier for 97% furnaces, just like they put on the res side. It's up to $500 for 97%. And then they also added demand control ventilation like the other gas utilities did. It is also 50 cents per square foot, right? So if I got 1,000 square feet, $500. 10,000 square feet, $5,000. That kind of thing. Unlike Nitecore, there is no $2,000 cap, so this one could go up to, I believe, $500,000 maximum. So you can put a lot of CO2 sensors in a building. You can't get more than you pay for the product, obviously. So if it costs you X amount of dollars, to install it, and the rebate calculates higher than that, you can't get the higher amounts. You're limited there. you can only get, I believe, don't quote me, but I believe it's 75% is the maximum you could get. So if you paid $1,000 to install a DCV system, the most you could get would be a $750 rebate, I believe. In addition to CO2 sensors for space control, and by the way, if you need more information on demand control ventilation CO2 sensors, we did do a webinar on that a few months ago, and it was recorded. So send me a note, and I'll give you the link to that and where you could watch it and see how these systems all work. But in addition to CO2-based demand control ventilation, which is what you'd use in schools, auditoriums, retail, restaurant dining rooms, that kind of stuff, in addition to that, there's also a DCV rebate that's new for heated parking garages. You can get 50 cents per square foot there. Obviously, in that case, we're not using CO2 sensors. We're using carbon monoxide sensors, or if it's diesel vehicles, we're using nitrogen dioxide sensors. And there's also a DCV rebate for kitchen hood exhausts. It's $350 per exhaust fan horsepower. The idea there, obviously, is the less I exhaust out, the less makeup air I need, the less natural gas I got to buy for the makeup air. That's why it's on this program. What else? The other big change is on the custom rebates. Instead of being $1 per therm, it ranges from $1.25 to $2, and I'll explain how that works in a couple minutes here. So here's some of the rebates. I won't read through every single one, once again, because on the commercial side, there's just tons of them. But there's the steam trap repair, just like on the Nitecore side. Steam traps are a big deal for these programs. It's low-hanging fruit and saves a lot of therms. If a steam trap is stuck open, nobody complains about it from a comfort standpoint, but it wastes a ton of energy. So there's different rebates here. There is a rebate to do a survey, and there's also a rebate to repair or replace the traps that are broken after you do that survey. And then there's tiers for regular commercial buildings and for industrial. And by the way, generally multifamily, condo buildings and apartments count as commercial buildings for most of these rebate programs, generally speaking. There are rebates for hot water boilers. If you put in a condensing boiler, 95% efficient and better, over 300 MBH, it's $4 per MBH that ends up being your rebate. If it's smaller than that, it's $6.67 per MBH. Not sure who was figuring that one out, but they didn't like rounding. Rebates for condensing unit heaters, rebates for steam boilers, rebates for outside air reset controls. Once again, there's a maximum on that, $1,500, 50 cents per MBH. There's rebates for tune-ups, also capped at $1,500, 40 cents per MBH. You're seeing a lot of similarities between the Nitecore and Peoples and North Shore gas programs for a lot of these things because they're all using the same general governing document that we call the Technical Resource Manual for Illinois to kind of figure out what they might want to do and how much energy certain things save. So you see a lot of the same efficiency tiers and a lot of the same dollar amounts even. Not always exactly, but a lot of similarities. There are rebates for pipe insulation. Basically, the hotter the pipe, the bigger the rebate. So for domestic water, it's $2 per foot. And then for steam, it's $8 per foot, and then anywhere in between there. There's also rebates for insulating steam control valves. Rebates for furnaces, 92, 95, or now 97% for $300, $400, or $500. Infrared heaters, so if you take out a bunch of unit heaters and put infrared heaters in a warehouse or a manufacturing facility or loading dock or whatever, it's $4 per MBH. So at Nitecore, it was a fixed dollar amount. For Peoples in North Shore, it's based on the size of the heater. So you just take the size of the heater and multiply it by 4. There are rebates for small gas water heaters, $150. There are rebates for larger ones. It's $2 per MBH. Indirect water heaters are on the program. So if you add a tank onto an indirect system, it's $200. If you're doing it on a big system like a domestic water on a condo building, you're probably going to take the custom route instead of this route because that's just the tank, and you need to get the boiler rebate also. Tankless is on here. Programmable stats, $50. The DCV stuff that I just had mentioned a minute ago is all on here. There are now rebates on the prescriptive standard side for burner combustion management control. So if you want to put linkage list control in there or something like that, there are rebates available for that. And then the other big change is on the custom side. Like I said, it used to be $1 for every therm saved over the first year. And now it's a tiered program, and the sooner you take action, the higher your rebate's going to be. So if you do something right now this summer, it's double. It's $2 per therm. But if you wait until the fall, it's $1.75. The winter, it's $1.50. The spring, it's $1.25. So it keeps going down as the year goes on to encourage end users to make a decision faster and do this work sooner. There's also a maximum dollar amount that can be done on the custom at that dollar amount. So once the 1.5 million is used up in rebate programs projects this summer, then it would automatically take you down to the next dollar amount. So it's the date or the maximum could be hit before the dollar amount gets reduced. But you always got the $1.25 available, even if all the other bonuses get chewed up here. And $1.25 is still a really good rebate. All right, let's see if there's a couple questions popping in here. Oh, I think Paige is talking about the custom. Paige from People's North Shore Gas Franklin mentioned that this work does not necessarily have to be completed during this time frame. It's your paperwork that has to be done by this time frame. So if you see here, you got to submit your custom application by these dates to apply for this money and reserve it for you. So you can reserve it right now, even though you may not do the work until October or something like that. You can do it kind of that way. The work obviously does have to be completed in the program year, which is May 31st, but you could apply for it early, reserve the funds, start your project, and get things rolling. So that's a pretty good thing you can do to get your customer to commit to it and do a letter of intent with you, that kind of thing. All right, looks like we're good on people's questions for right now. So let's talk about ComEd, and then we'll jump into some of the other state utilities so you can see what's there. So ComEd changes for the year. By the way, ComEd decided not to wait till June 1st to allow the changes to happen. Every single change ComEd made this year was an increase to the program, higher dollar amounts or new technologies. So they said, you know what, screw it. Go ahead and launch it the day we decided, which is May 14th. So this is retroactive to May 14th, not June 1st. You can do these things. As far as chillers and VFDs go, which are some of the bigger rebates on the program, no changes there. No changes to room units and no changes to PTAC units. Changes that did happen are the custom rebates are now allowed to be up to 100% of what you paid. So if you paid $100,000 to install a technology and the rebate calculated out to be $100,000, you can get the full 100. There's no cap, restriction in that regard. There's a whole new entire program available for laboratories. I'm not going to go through all that because most of you guys don't do lab work, but there is a program for that now. There's a big focus on the small business. ComEd got some additional funding from other sources to really boost the small business program. So the money, I forget what it is, but it's like 4 or 5 times the dollar amount. So in that regard, you're going to see a lot of stuff happening with that. And there's actually a new website for you to check out, which is comed.com/tradeally. So the contractors can check that out to see some additional stuff, training options, that kind of thing. Here's kind of a summary of all the ComEd rebates that are available, and the ones in green are the ones that have been tweaked this year for May 14th and later. The other ones in black are the same as last year. So for water-cooled chillers, it's still $20 per ton if you beat the efficiency marks. I'll show you those efficiency marks in a second. And the more you beat the efficiency tier, the bigger and bigger rebate you get. So it's not uncommon to get $60, $70 per ton on some of these water-cooled chillers. Air-cooled chillers the same way. The base is $30 per ton, and the better you beat the efficiency minimum by, the bigger the rebate they give you. Economizers went from $40 to $50 per ton. That's installing an economizer on a retrofit situation onto an existing rooftop or air handler. Demand control ventilation changed. It used to be 3 cents per square foot. Now it's 4 cents per square foot. It went up a little bit. And remember, you can double dip that with the 50 cents you get from the gas utilities. Building automation systems, energy management systems, that jumped from 20 cents to 35 cents per square foot. There's a lot of rules associated with that program. I'll touch on a few of them in a minute. If you put demand control ventilation in a parking garage, it's $300 per exhaust fan horsepower. Once again, you're using CO or nitrogen dioxide sensors to ramp up and down that fan. There's a small new rebate for adding occupancy sensors to bathrooms. Basically turn the bathroom exhaust fan off when no one's in there. You could add ECM motors to a fan power box and get a rebate. However, I will caution you on that. The spec for that for ComEd says that you actually have to control the speed of the fan. Most ECM motors on a fan power box just go in there and they replace the old PSC, and they do not change the speed dynamically based on what the DDC controller wants. In order to get the rebate, you have to do that, so you have to come up with your own little sequence to make that happen. There is a new rebate for $5 per ton for adding chill water reset controls to your chiller plant. There's rebates for COG V-belts, $5 per horsepower, and then there's some new pumping rebates you could check out. All the rebates for ComEd are at comed.com/busincentives, or you can use that Trade Ally website that I mentioned earlier. Here's an example of the chiller ones. So for the chillers, you have to know if it's water cooled or air cooled, and then once you decide that, you got to decide what kind of compressor it has, centrifugal, scroll, or recip. If it's a screw compressor, they have been categorizing that into the scroll, helical, rotary type, because the screw is technically rotary, I guess. So it falls into that category. They give you a minimum efficiency, and then the lower you can get below that number with your actual machine, the bigger the rebate you get. So it's $20 per ton plus a $3.50 bonus for every 0.01 kW per ton better you do. The kW per ton is IPLV, which is part load. There's nothing that is triggered off of full load because full load hardly ever happens and it's basically irrelevant. So it's all based on part load efficiencies here. And the better you do, the more money that you'll actually get. So it's kind of a whole tiered system. Same thing on air cooled, but there's just 2 tiers, and it doesn't matter what kind of compressor you have. It's just, are you bigger or smaller than 150 tons? Then your target gets tweaked slightly, and the same kind of bonus is in effect there. That's kind of how the chiller ones work there. That's pretty big rebates you end up getting. Room AC, based on the size of it, there's certain EERs you have to hit for $30 a ton. Same thing with package terminals. The EER you actually have determines how much your rebate's going to be. VFDs, whether they're doing something unrelated to HVAC or whether they're on an HVAC system, basically it's $60 per horsepower if you put it on an HVAC pump or fan. If you put it on a chiller compressor, it's only $25 per horsepower. And then if you do it on a pool system, it's actually $100. There's all kinds of rules on how the VFD has to work, so you want to read that in advance. There's a minimum amount of operating hours it has to have. It has to be controlled, one of the applicable, allowed methods. So there's a few different things like that that are in play that you got to pay attention to. But for the most part, most VFDs will qualify. If you're putting a VFD as part of a package of a new installed rooftop and it's coming factory installed on there, there are ways to get rebates on that. So if you're doing that, let me know. Same thing with staged air volume systems with VFD staging. There are rebates available to do it that way. Let me know once again if you're doing one of those, and I'll walk you through it. You can also do custom on the ComEd side. It's either 6 or 7 cents a kilowatt hour for the first year of savings. The 6 cents is basically, you calculate what the energy savings is, ComEd agrees to it, they pay you the 6 cents. The 7 cents is if you don't want to get a guarantee, and you say, let me just let it ride and see what happens, and if I beat the estimate, I get more. If I don't beat the estimate, I get less. That's the kind of way that one's set up. So you can get a guarantee if you need it, or you can try to get higher money. It's like playing roulette here. The other thing that happens in Illinois is that if you're a public building, meaning you're a school, fire station, village hall, something like that, you do not get your rebates from the electric utility and the gas utility. You still pay into those programs, but they take 25% of the money they collect and they put it in a bucket over there at the DCEO, Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity at the state, and the state runs that program. So there are utility rebates available for public entities, but they do a different application form through the DCEO to get their money. And hence some of the things are a little bit different. They do on their system have condensing units commercially and rooftop units commercially. That's these first 4 here, whereas ComEd did not have that. It's $100 per ton if you beat these EER amounts. They got something similar for water and air-cooled chillers, depending on the level of the efficiency that you have, like that bottom chart shows, determines how much money you get for your rebate. They got PTAC rebates. They got room air conditioner rebates. Very similar program. Generally speaking, the dollar amounts are higher than the ComEd ones because the public sector kind of feels they have less funding sources obviously available, so they give them a little better rebate. But they also do gas electric mixed because they don't really care. They don't have any reason to separate it. So you can get rebates for water heating. You can get rebates for furnaces, 92, 94, 96%. It's based on the size of the furnace in those cases. Same thing on boilers. The size of the boiler and its efficiency determines your rebate. So if you put in a 1,000,000 BTU boiler that's 90% condensing and higher, it's $14 for every 1,000 BTUs. So that is a $14,000 rebate, which is pretty substantial. Remember the Nitecore one, it was $5,000. This one's $14,000, so it's a lot of money. Infrared unit heaters, $850 per heater, similar to what the Nitecore thing was doing, just a little bit more money. There are some tune-up programs available to tune up burners on gas-fired boilers and furnaces and things like that. They do have geothermal heat pumps on this program, so you can get those rebates. It's based on the efficiency and size of the system, so you got to multiply it out to see what your rebate's going to actually be. There are rebates for VFDs. It's $92 per horsepower versus ComEd, which you saw was $60. So once again, that's a higher dollar amount. And they also have special and custom rebates. Custom is very attractive. It's 12 cents per kilowatt hour versus 6 or 7 cents from ComEd. And on the gas side, it's $3 per therm versus 75 cents to $2 for the gas utilities. So it's a lot more money for those folks, like we had mentioned. They also do bonuses. If you do stuff by a certain date, like if you do stuff by October 31st, you get a 10% bonus on top of any rebate. If you do it by I guess, Valentine's Day, you get a 5% rebate. There's also boiler tune-up programs that are out there, all kinds of stuff. There's a group called CDEC, which does free and or low-cost energy assessments for both public buildings and private buildings. They also run some other programs like retro-commissioning for public buildings. So check that out at cdac.org. It is in conjunction with DCEO. They get a lot of their funding through there, so a lot of those projects can overlap. All right, if we switch over to Indiana here, give you a highlight of some of their rebates. Same kind of thing as the other states. In this case, it's 90 cents per MBH for a boiler that is a condensing boiler, 90% and better. AFUE on the small size. On the big ones, big means 300,000 BTUs and larger, it's only got to be 85%. But that, for the most part, still puts you into a 90% condensing boiler because hardly anybody makes anything from 85 to 89%. But 90 cents per MBH. And there's a tune-up program available as well. Depending on the size of the boiler, you get different amounts for the tune-up, either $100, $200, or if it's a really big boiler, it's based on the size of the boiler. Similar programs here. We got outside air reset, 35 cents per MBH. Modulating burner controls, same thing. Furnaces, $225 if they're 90% efficient or better. Infrared heaters, $2.50 per MBH. Steam traps, $75 a trap. Stats, $50. Demand controlled ventilation, CO2 sensors, that's 15 cents per square foot. And then tune-ups on furnaces or rooftop units are either $50 or $100 for the tune-up, depending on what size it is. All the Nipsco rebates, just like with residential, they end on December 31st, and then new programs start on January 1st. In Indiana, in that overlapping area, there's the program called Energizing Indiana. It's a statewide electric program. So the gas utilities do their own thing in Indiana. Electric utilities do a statewide program. So if you happen to be in the Nipsco territory, Nipsco Electric, it would look like this. Or if you are in Indiana, Michigan Power in Indiana, it would look like this. So there's rebates here for rooftop units and commercial split systems. It's either $30 a ton or $50 a ton if you do a heat pump version. So kind of here, there's the tiers. There are rebates for water-cooled chillers. It's based on the tonnage and type of compressor, and you're going to get $30 a ton. You have to meet a full load and a part load efficiency in order to get those rebates. There are no rebates for the air-cooled chillers. VFDs, it's $40 per horsepower in that regard. And there's also custom rebates available. It's 60 cents per therm on the gas side and 9 cents per therm for the electric side if you're in that northwest Indiana area. If you do new construction stuff, the rebates are actually higher. It kind of works like the custom. You got to do an application saying I'm going to save this much energy above code in that case for new construction, and they'll give you $1.10 for the gas rebate. If you're up in Michigan, eastern Michigan, like some of you are, Michigan Gas, Semco Energy will be your utilities. EfficiencyUnited.com is the website. Also running on a calendar year, so these end on December 31st. New ones start on January 1st. So for boilers, it's got to be 88% or higher. It's $1.50 per MBH. Furnaces got to be 92%. They got to have an ECM motor, and they got to be two-stage. If you do all of that, it's $1.40 per MBH. This is all commercial, right? Because we already talked about residential. There are rebates for boiler outside air reset controls and boiler turn down. It's based on the size of the boiler. Same thing with tune-ups. There's tune-ups for boilers and furnaces. It's based on the size of the boiler and furnace. There are rebates for insulating steam pipe or hot water piping. And by the way, those rebates have to be in unconditioned space. If it's a conditioned space, you're basically giving up heat to the space anyway, so it's not a big loss, if any. There are rebates for gas water heaters. You only got to be a 0.62 energy factor, but it's only $25, so it's not a very high rebate. Bigger ones have to be a higher efficiency. There's rebates for tankless, $90 for a 0.82. Pool heaters, $2 per MBH. So if you use your boiler for pool heating, there's your rebate tier. Like everybody else, they got infrared heaters on here. It's $4 per MBH. You can see most utilities either do a fixed dollar amount or they do it based on the MBH of the burner. Demand control ventilation is 80 cents per square foot. So that's a really good rebate. That's higher than any of the other utilities. Indiana was 15 cents, Illinois was 50 cents, and then Michigan gas is 80 cents per square foot. You can see infrared and demand control ventilation are kind of the newest things that have popped up in the past year or two on here. You can get building automation setback controls. It's 90 cents a square foot. Chill water systems, 5 cents a square foot. Chill water reset, $30 per ton. So there's a whole bunch of things that are available here on the Michigan gas side, gas and electric side. Excuse me. Here's more on the electric side for Michigan. So you can get rebates for split systems or rooftop units. It's $10 a ton if you hit these efficiency levels for those sizes. Heat pumps, $10 a ton for those efficiency levels. Chillers, there's one rebate for air cooled. It's $20 a ton. You got to be less than 1.2 kW per ton full load. Pretty much almost anybody's chiller can meet that. So basically they're saying if you get a new chiller, you're going to get a rebate. Get rid of that old beast. On the water-cooled side, it's based on tonnage, but they do not specify any specific compressor in that program like other utilities. It's $20 a ton for hitting these specific tiers of both full load and part load. You got to meet both. And then also on the electric side, just like they had on the gas side, demand control ventilation. So you're getting, what did I say? 80 cents on the gas side, 20 cents on the electric side. So if you're a customer of both, you get $1 per square foot rebate, which is substantial. Building automation setback controls on here. Economizers, $8.50 a ton. Chilled water controls, guest room management for hotels, all that's on here. VFDs for HVAC, $60 a horsepower. So very similar to the other utilities. A lot of these things kind of are similar. The dollar amounts just get tweaked slightly. Custom program, 40 cents per therm saved, and 5 cents per kilowatt saved for these utilities that I'm showing here. All right, and then the last one is really the Wisconsin. Wisconsin, if you haven't already realized, they've been doing this stuff for decades with these rebates, so they have a pretty well-established program. But here's their boiler rebates. The rebates are based on the size and efficiency of the boiler. So what was my other example? 1 million BTU modulating condensing boiler, 90% and better. That's this guy right here. It's $3 per MBH, so it'd be a $3,000 rebate for a 1 million BTU boiler, if you want to look at it that way. They also have a couple rebates for boiler plants where you can combine, mid-efficiency and high efficiency and get rebates for doing that. So that's a little bit unique. Once again, these guys are more established than other states. They got rebates on here for furnaces. Once again, 90, 95% are pretty common tiers. 125 and 275 are the dollar amounts. Unit heater, condensing unit heaters, P-tax, infrared heaters, $2.50 per MBH is the rebate there. There are rebates, which I believe these ones are a little bit newer, for DX systems, depending on the efficiency that you have. So say, for example, you put a 10-ton system in, it's got to be 11.5 EER, and then you got to do this little magical formula to figure out what your dollar amount is going to be. There's also a specific program that started last fall for rooftop optimization. They call it the RTO program, Rooftop Optimization Rebates. And you're basically doing a tune-up on the rooftop unit. And then on top of the tune-up, you can do some of these other rebates. One is add a programmable stat for $40. One is add an advanced programmable stat for $100. Basically, that's going to involve some extra wires to shut the outside air louver at night. Because if you didn't know it, rooftop units, every single night when they turn on heating and cooling, even though no one's there, they go to minimum ventilation position, which is obviously a huge energy waster when nobody's there. You don't need ventilation. So this kind of stat will stop that from happening. There's an entire list of approved stats I can send you if you're interested in that. You can add an economizer to one of the existing rooftops that you're tuning up for $250, and you could add CO2 sensor for $400. There are chiller rebates in Wisconsin as well. There's a formula that you would have to fill out, but you do have to meet both a full load efficiency and a part load IPLV in order to get these rebates. There's a section for air-cooled, above and below 150 tons, and then there's water-cooled depending on whether you have a centrifugal or any other type of compressor. So scroll or screw would fall into that other category. But you got to meet the full load and the part load and then multiply everything out to figure out what your rebate's going to be. They do have some other specialty rebates for computer room units, building automation systems, and process type stuff. It's kind of on a custom basis, if you will. Other rebates that they have on the program, if you put an ERV in Wisconsin, it's 75 cents per CFM of outside air. By the way, none of the other utilities we talked about had an ERV rebate listed. So all those utilities you do it as a custom rebate, whereas in Wisconsin, it's actually a pre-listed rebate. Demand control ventilation with CO2 sensors. Like I said, if it's a rooftop unit, it's $400 per rooftop unit on the RTO program. But if it's other systems like an air handler, it's 20 cents per CFM of outside air. Boiler outside air reset controller is $75. VFDs are $50 per horsepower. You can do tune-ups on heating or cooling systems. Heating system, whether it's a furnace or a rooftop, it's 10 cents per MBH. Chiller tune-ups are $2 per ton. Rooftop and DX tune-ups are between $30 and $100 per ton. There's rebates on there for insulating pipes, mainly steam pipes, and there's also some stuff for combustion management systems on boilers. Custom rebates, it's 30% of what you pay up to a maximum of $200,000. And then in Wisconsin, like almost every other state, their programs end December 31st and start new on January 1st. If you happen to be in Wisconsin and a We Energies customer, like the residential one I talked about, certain things may give you an extra $100. It's pretty simple stuff like 95% gas furnaces and boilers and things like that. So if you want to learn about those, go to we-energies.com/EE. EE stands for energy efficiency. If you're in the city of Milwaukee proper, there's also rebates for you on the commercial side, just like the res side had it. The website is smartenergypays.com. You can basically double dip, get the utility rebate, and get these small business incentives. Or if you're not a small business, then you can get the regular business incentives. But basically, however much you save in terms of percent determines how much extra rebate you get. So that's a pretty nice program for those that are in the city of Milwaukee proper. If you are in the city of Racine, there is a similar but less robust program there. The website is cityofracine.org/RE2. And you can see what those are. There's some low interest financing type stuff available for those kind of buildings. For our friends down in Missouri, there's water heating rebates for storage water heaters or condensing water heaters, typical type stuff we talked about earlier. Furnace rebates, $200 or $300 depending on whether you're 90 or 95 or 96% efficient. Energy Star boilers, $200. Programmable stat, $25. Infrared heaters, $300. The website there is betterheatingnow.com, and Missouri is on a calendar year also. There's not a ton of gas rebates there, but there's a few, so pay attention to them. Kansas City, if you're on Kansas City Power, and on the Missouri side, there are rebates available to you. If you're on the Kansas side, no rebate programs. And then depending on which utility you are, the existing one or the one they just bought determines which website you might go to get your rebates. And then just like the res side, the commercial programs have tons of other stuff. There's an entire track usually available for new construction buildings. Basically, you model the building per code, then you model it the way you're going to do it with the increased efficiency, and then they give you a rebate for the difference. There's special programs available for commercial kitchens as well as other food service environments for both the HVAC stuff and for the fryers and water heaters and things like that. Sometimes there's rebates for refrigeration. I know Wisconsin has it set up that way. There's definitely lighting rebates for all these utilities. And then some have them for niche markets like data centers, small business, battery charging. Many of the states have programs for low-cost or free energy audits and assessments, so they can come out and help you figure out what you need to do to save energy and get a plan put together for you. Sometimes there's free retro commissioning services or low-cost retro commissioning services where they come in and try to help you get your building operating per its original specs. There's special programs oftentimes for schools, in some states agricultural, low-income housing, all that kind of stuff. So I realized I jammed about 2 hours worth of stuff into an hour and 20 minutes. I talked as fast as I possibly could. If you guys have further questions on it, you can type them in right now. or you can send me a note later. My email is on there. And like I said, this presentation has been recorded, so if you want to go back and watch it again, or if you want to share it with a coworker or something like that, you can do that. Questions that came up. George wrote in does Nipsco have a, oh, sorry, he corrected his question. Does Nipsco have a residential furnace tune-up rebate? I don't think that there is a tune-up rebate for Nipsco residentially. Let me go back real quick, and we'll pull that one up again just in case I missed it. Nope, no tune-up rebate for Nipsco residentially. And if you're ever in doubt, you can go to this website here and look on there as well. What else? Looks like that's it. It's a couple people asking for the link to the recording, which I can send you, no problem. Anybody else have any other questions, type them in, or send me an email. My email is on the front screen there. I thank you guys for your time, and I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. Thank you.